met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
Cool to see Walter White quoting Shelley. And it is so true when we start breaking bad against the archons. The works of the tyrannical elite will come to naught in the end, for they are empty, dusty canals of pride and prejudice and pomposity. And hey, maybe our works are empty as we tarry in the Canoma, with our smartphone upgrades and social media tirades and political bromides.
I can't help thinking somewhere in the universe there has to be something better than man.
We need to be better, and we need to be better now. I mean, what kind of world will we leave Keith Richards? We need to amp up our Cable and Deadpool 2 sensitivity and become pleroma mercenaries to fight terrible futures that are almost actualized.
But we stopped Judgment Day.
You only postponed it. Judgment Day is inevitable.
But hey now, there is already a rescue operation in place by Hagia Sophia and some bro-aeons to redeem the cosmos. Ignite all the slumbering sparks of divinity in every being in every planet, even our prison planet. As Joni Mitchell sang in Woodstock, we are stardust, billion-year-old carbon. We are golden, caught in the devil's bargain, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden.
Believe me, the sooner we're off the planet, the better.
There is help out there. One might be Lucifer. And Lucifer may be more than an archetype, more than a principle, more than a representation of light-bringing and the illumined human imagination, human potential. He may be an actual physical entity from the stars. At least that's one of the notions we will be exploring on this episode as Patrice Chaplin returns to the virtual Alexandria to discuss her two new books, The Stone Cradle and Lucifer by Moonlight. So get ready for a spiritual orgasm and red pill suppository, as you as well manifest at the virtual Alexandria, that state of mind where East meets West. Welcome with kindness and love to AM Gnostic Radio. We don't take prisoners but liberate them. We are not the final authority on anything, but hope to be an endless possibility for everything. You are the final authority, have always been. Together, we're building vast futures of light, tapping into our creativity, invention, and innovation to create better stories than Jehovah and his butthurt butt slaves in the establishment. We're writing our own gospels and living our own myths.
You see, I keep thinking that what we need is a new language, a language of the heart. And I think that in order to create that language, you're going to have to learn how you can go through a looking glass into another kind of perception where you have that sense of being united to all things, and suddenly you understand everything.
I'm so bloody happy you're here with me on this dark odyssey through the gnashing rocks of orthodoxy. all the way to the farthest shores of imagination. I, Miguel Connor, am so honored to be your host, that Pompatus of Gnosis and voice in the wilderness crying out for your inner Prometheus and indwelling Pallas Athena. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being yourself, your true self. It was Sartre who said that the ultimate goal of life was freedom. And that was it, and there was nothing else after that. The Gnostics, Christian existentialists, in a similar vein to Kierkegaard or Johnny Cash, would agree to an extent, but went further and said there was something beyond freedom, which was, as mentioned earlier, the kindling of a divine spark within each one of us that could light the universe and bring meaning in the darkness of mere being.
You and I, we have a higher calling.
The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long.
Lucifer would agree, and as mentioned, he might be as real as you and I are real, whatever that means. This will be covered by Patrice Chaplin, again as mentioned, based on her two new works, The Stone Cradle and Lucifer by Moonlight. Patrice will also share her new experiences with interdimensional portals in Iberia, guarded by a secret cabal of esotericists that have included Jean Cocteau, Salvador Dali, Howard Hughes, Freemasons, Kabbalists, and possibly Cathars, and threatened by orthodox forces throughout history, from the Romans to the Nazis to NASA. We covered much of this in our past two interviews, based on her books, City of Secrets and The Portal. Now, Patrice expands with her two new works, bringing up new and provocative revelations and how it all ties up with Lucifer and alien meteors from other galaxies. The devil went down to Georgia, but Lucifer landed in Spain.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Truly amazing accounts from Patrice, which also brings new dimensions to the legends of the Grail, and even Mary Magdalene traveling to Europe, and the whole Saunière saga from Holy Blood and Holy Grail and the Da Vinci Code. I've read a lot of Grail theories, but something tells me Patrice might be the most accurate, especially when paralleled to portals in the Iberian Peninsula, some that I have experienced, as I've mentioned in other podcasts.
Welcome to the Grail.
The Grail.
For over 2,000 years, this organization has been at the very heart of world affairs. What do you think is the source of our enduring power?
I would imagine a combination of economic influence and sexual blackmail.
Some, of course.
Patrice carries some weight on her shoulders. Such has been her quest. But maybe that's the burden of the mystic, or just human nature in general. Who knows? Maybe we're all like that recent report of an orca mother who carried her dead calf for more than 2 weeks across thousands of miles of ocean. Like her, we carry our pain, our bloated, stillborn memories, our alleged shortcomings, and our lost potential through waters of existence. Maybe this dead weight can assist us in finding better stories. It's like the Bergman movie, Fanny and Alexander, where the protagonist explains she doesn't want to move forward after tragedy because the broken pieces of her life is all she has left, all that remains from a more innocent time.
There are too many ideas and things and people, too many directions to go. I was starting to believe the reason it matters to care passionately about something is that it whittles the world down to a more manageable size.
Yes, the world is broken, and the sparks of Sophia are broken and scattered across the cosmos. Is there any chance for a better tomorrow? Well, in the end, after 2 weeks, the orca mother released her dead calf, The tour of grief over, the child honored and forever loved. And now there was freedom in a new narrative in wide open seas. In Fanny and Alexander, the protagonist starts a new family. Lucifer is lost in the world, as is Sophia, but neither hasn't given up in their searches for those who want to awaken, or at least hear their tales. In other words, where hope dies, imagination must live. And then the empty works of Ozymandias can be left behind for new stories that honor those broken pieces of a past life. Sometimes I miss the dead calves of my life, find myself carrying them, and then realize they've been given a new life by Sophia, by wisdom herself. And they are all waiting for me in better imagined worlds, for Keith Richards or not. With grail hunters and fallen angels and so much wonder. We can use our past pain to find new joy. Our pain, our dead memories can work for us, can serve us. Our memories don't have to torment us, but become lessons for those who need a chance.
It is said that the future is always born in pain. If we are wise, what is born of that pain matures into the promise of a better world, because we learn that we can no longer afford the mistakes of the past.
As Emily Dickinson wrote, the world is not conclusion. A sequel stands beyond, invisible as music, but positive as sound. These possibilities and potentials are offered by Patrice's incredible tale, my beloved truth seekers. And for members, I'll also be adding her past interview on her book, The Portal. The interview really complements this one and focuses more on the Grail legends, Saunière, those interdimensional portals, and European occult intrigue. But enough of my drivel, as they say in France. Let us to the interview with Patrice Chaplin.
I realized that I always defined myself in terms of what I wasn't. I wasn't a good soldier like my father. I wasn't the job. I wasn't a good prospect for marriage or kids. Always what I wasn't. Never what I was. And when you do that, you miss the moments. And the moments are all we've got. When I thought I was going to die, even after everything that's happened, I realized I didn't want to let go. I was willing to do it all over again, and this time I could appreciate the moments. I can't go back, but I can appreciate what I have right now. And I can define myself by what I am instead of what I'm not.
And what are you?
Alive. Everything else is negotiable.
This is the AM Byte interview, and with us we are honored to have back Patrice Chaplin to discuss her latest books, Lucifer by Moonlight and The Stone Cradle. How are you doing today, Patrice?
Hi, Miguel. I'm doing very well. Thank you. It's evening here and very beautiful day.
Wonderful. Well, it's still daylight here in the United States, but let's spread a little bit more light. And with us also, it's great to have the Moon Dog and the Chicken Wingman of Abraxas, Vance. How are you doing, Vance?
Oh, very well today, Miguel. I'm looking forward to learning about all these mysteries.
Yes, we are. And yes, it was truly a joy to continue the adventure, which I started years ago with The Secret and then The Portal. So I thought it couldn't get more intense or more mystic or anything like that, but it did with your new book, The Stone Cradle. But first, we would like to quickly discuss also a book you released not too long ago, and that is Lucifer by Moonlight. And as you have mentioned, tell us, this book seems to have been channeled by Lucifer, as you've said in other interviews, right?
No, I don't think it's channeled by Lucifer. I think it's channeled by me, because I go to a spirit healer. I go to a psychic surgeon. Do you have these in the States? You must do. I'm sure you do. A psychic surgeon, heals the body in ways that most healers can't, because it's much more abrupt. Well, it's like surgery, they will use, though you can't see the mechanics, you can feel them. It's quite a sharp kind of experience. But it will, for example, heal your knees, so you don't have to go and have a knee replacement or something like that.
Right.
And Stephen Churoff is a very well-known healer in the States and India, and he was tied up with Sai Baba for a while, but he's an East London, East End boy. I mean, he's sort of 70 plus now, and he's been doing it for years. And he's the surgeon people go to. They say, go to Stephen. It's like when, before you walk into that scene where they're going to remove everything from you, you go and give Stephen a chance. That's really it. And through Stephen work 8 or 10 medics who have passed over, and so they're doctors or nurses or even paramedics depending on what era they were passed over and have attached to Stephen. And the thing about it is, it's not even really a discussion about whether they're there or they're not there. And people will go there because they get better. So the point is, I've seen people go to Stephen Churoff who've come all the way from Oslo to London by train, which is quite a difficult feat to do because they have a heart condition, they can't fly. And they walk in the door, and within minutes they're made well. Something has happened, some change. So I've been going to him for a while, and one day I went in there, and he said, he's very quick, very quick. He controls it all, and he's quick. Now, he just did something to my knee, crack, not too good, painful, right? Then he said, I'm told there's an angel coming to visit you in the next 2 days. So I thought immediately I was going to go to spirit. I'd be dead, right? And I said, I immediately said, oh no, who? What? I mean, I was clinging on to him, I think. So he said, you're not afraid of dying, are you? And I said, no, of course not. I was terrified. So he started out of the little cubicle into the next patient. I said, would you just come back? I mean, what angel? And he said, I don't know. He said, I've just been told there's an angel coming through. You're going to see you. And so I thought, this is not good news. When I got home, I thought I did some prayers. I surrounded myself with gold light, and I'm fairly mediumistic, right? So I do some protections and things like this, And I thought it's going to happen at night. It's going to be one of those terrible visions where you wake up and you're in the middle of some supersonic experience, your heart's pounding and you can't get out of it. I thought this will be it, and then I'll go see the angel, and I probably won't no one to see me again.
Yeah.
So, so the night passed without that happening, right? Then the next day comes along, and it was, the Stone Cradle was out then, and I was doing interviews for the Stone Cradle, and I was writing things about the Stone Cradle. Because I had an interview coming up in a couple of days, as if I was still alive. I would be there. I would be there talking. So I did another day. I didn't think about it too much. Then the night comes along, and nothing happens. The next day comes along, and I think, well, he's wrong. And then I suddenly realized I'd been writing about Lucifer, and the Stone Cradle. To say something about it quickly, the Stone Cradle is a meteorite that crashed through the meteor belt into the north of Spain on the frontier with France millions of years ago. It's landed in an area which is right at the top of Spain into France, where it's deserted and it's inhospitable to humans. All the trees are very old. There's menhirs and dolmens, standing stones that you can hear. The sea, when the sea actually came up that far, which is quite a long way. It's a difficult land. The winds from the mountains, which are very nearby, are very ferocious. I mean, it's not a place you want to go to. A human being wouldn't. You wouldn't go there. And there's a lot of it. It's a huge place. Anyway, the stone, the meteorite, had landed in that area. And it was just attached to a hill, small hill. And the channel where it had come on the land, it was a great scraping of the land. So you could see, forever that something big had happened here. And this meteorite is made up of rock and iron and another ingredient that they've not actually itemized yet. People from Cambridge have been down there and had a look at it, archaeologists. But it is it's something that probably they say comes from dark space. So this cradle lay there for millions of years. I've no idea what happened then, but there it was. And Lucifer. Now, this is a legend of the north of Spain and Catalonia, but also followed by many people like Otto Rahn, the metaphysical writer of the Grail from Germany. In the 30s, 33, he went there to look for traces of Lucifer. Now, Lucifer is reported to have come to Earth 5,000 plus years ago and landed in that place where that cradle stone is, where the meteorite is, and was placed on the stone to nourish the being and also to rock the being. And legend has it that a woman from the east came to nurse him, and nearby there is a figure in a church, an effigy, on the mountain, in a small chapel of Oriental woman, even today. And this Oriental woman is a surprise because it's nothing to do with Catalans, wasn't to do with the previous lot, which were Celts, and nothing to do with the Neanderthal man or the race that they said existed there before, which was a superior, lighter race than us, and had to do with Venus. And these are the things that are stated about this area and that place. So Lucifer was laid on this cradle. Now, many years, thousands of years after that, the cradle was known to be a healing stone. So people would come and lie on the stone, and they would get better, or they'd give birth. And in some cases, they'd die. Because they knew they were dying, they would go there to die, because it was a very, very special healing meteorite. Anyway, the shape of it, because of all the attendees that went for healing, became concave. And it rocked, and it's a very smooth blue stone. And they say that spirits coming to this earth have to pass through the cradle, and those going out from death into another existence have to go through it too. So it's quite a stern cradle, and it was the Luciferic legend and the actual cradle have been part of mythology there for thousands of years. You know, the Celts believed in it. How they passed it on, I guess, was an oral passing on with the Celts. Before that, it seemed to be that there was soothsayers and psychics. They could pick up one from the other. There were things written on stones, marked on stones, and some cave paintings, which could be, it wasn't clear whether this was the Lucifer being. But the point about it is that there are guilds in the north of Spain that are Luciferic, and they're called the guilds of Lucifer or the guilds of light. And the shoemakers have a guild, which is and the thing is that they celebrate Lucifer as the Venus, the beginning, the morning star, the opening of the morning star, the initiator of Venus. That's the position that Lucifer has in the mythology. Also, some writers like the anthroposophist Rudolf Steiner said that Lucifer was brought here to for humans to be more evolved, to go into the etheric plane, and also that they would become healers, what the beings there, that's 5,000 years ago, that they would learn, they would be taught, and he traveled the planet, the Earth. He traveled throughout, bringing light and learning. That was the idea of Lucifer. And he had a presence at the building of the first pyramid, and a connection with Seshat, who was the goddess of writing, mythology, and measurement. She measured the pyramid. So these things existing today in the guilds and the traditions. There are in Catalonia there are towers made to Lucifer. The light is Luciferic. Venus is dominant over the area, and it's he's not considered here. I mean, the archangel is not considered, the fallen archangel is not considered to be Satan. It's not the devil. This is the bringer of light. And so people feel, oh well, this figure has been suppressed by the church. That this is not something they want to be celebrating here. But there is very little mention of Lucifer in the Bible, and I haven't read through it to look, but I've been told by a priest who would know. And Lucifer's seen definitely as a light bringer.
Patrice, let me interrupt real quick. I think it's fascinating because it reminds me also this legend that the Yazidi have in the Middle East with peacock angel Melek Tawas, who falls for thousands of years, like the Catalonian myth, and then he's there to help mankind. But we're not talking about an archetype of a light bringer. This Lucifer is a real figure that's come to help humanity, right?
A real being.
A real being, yeah.
And the thing about, the details of this being, I've picked up from being out there, because they talk about it with not reverence or as though it's idiocy. They're absolutely solid on it, because it's to do with Venus and to do what was there before the Celts and before the kind of Neanderthals, and there was another species. It's from Venus where it was here. Before that, there was something else was here. So it's sort of like we've gone down probably in tones since those species. But the thing interesting too is that they see Lucifer as the bringer of illusion and creativity. And these days, people, artists and musicians are very into Lucifer. Luciferic isn't a bad thing at all. They're into that. And in Spain, they also see that Lucifer brought free will. I mean, Lucifer was thrown out, definitely thrown out, because he gave man choice. You know, he was the one in the spoiler in the Garden of Eden. He was the favorite of God, and then he was outgone. So when I went back to Stephen Turoff, the healer, maybe a few weeks later, the thing was the channeling of the book. I went back to him, and he said, "Oh, did your angel come and see you?" And I said, "Yes, it was Lucifer." And he said, "Well, that's not bad. He's an archangel." And then he went out laughing. And so what happened was that I realized that when I was doing the work for the interviews for the Stone Cradle and to give a talk in Watkins bookshop in London, then I realized that I was writing about Lucifer. And that Lucifer was, a lot of things were kind of pouring out about Lucifer that I had no idea I knew about, or I had in me at all. I had no idea. And it took very short time and very few, 13,000 words, but non-stop. I didn't actually stop over those 2 days. So the 2 days I was waiting to die, or I will meet the angel face to face, I was writing about Lucifer. I had no idea, because I was writing about the cradle. And Lucifer became, because of the writing, became this being which apparently, according to Steiner and others, is denied death. There's no rebirth or death for Lucifer. Lucifer carries on. That's part of the penance and for having given man free will. So that book came out of something which I can't say ever I would have thought I had A in me, or B was present around me.
Wow, that's, in a way you were drawing from the world of archetypes and the collective unconscious. And have you had a chance to visit the Stone Cradle?
Oh, many times.
No.
I have many times. And I went, when I first went there, it was open. You know, I went there years ago. You know, it's when I was going there about 50 years ago. And I went there with my best friend in the whole world, Jose Torres, the poet, and a Catalan nationalist. I would say he was very, very important to me. Well, you know, definitely. And he was my partner. I mean, yeah. So he took me there. He took me to the area right by the border. And there was the cradle. It was in a chapel. It was in a small glass chapel. It seemed glass. Not sure. It was a long time ago, but it was a chapel. Remember that? And someone was looking after it. But people were allowed to go in there. There was no kind of secrecy or hiding it. And then after that, it was laid out on the grass, on the hill. People would go and visit that place and feel that stone. It's very smooth, dark blue stone. And it looks like a fruit dish. Funny, and it's very elegant, and it rocks, and it's kind of unspoilt. And so people then would go and just go up there, and behind there is built a church that has no denomination that I know of. It seems to be just like a church, and there's an old house that. And buildings that you couldn't survive. They couldn't survive normally. As they were kind of man-made buildings, they wouldn't survive the huge winds that come from the mountains, the tramontana, because they're winds that can be 150 kilometers an hour. Whatever, 150 kilometers at speed. They go at a speed of that, or even higher. And so every building in that area that is built, and there aren't many, are built in the shadow of away from the wind, so that the winds, otherwise people would be dead or not done. So why this is not only built right in the open, looking over to the Mount Canigou, which is the highest mountain on that range, but it's in the wind and nothing happens to it. It's there in storm and wind, and it's there. sort of doesn't belong to people. That's the only way I can put it. It's not a kind of place that you would go in and you'd feel at home. It's a strange place. Not bad at all. It's just it has a strange atmosphere. And then I realized much more about it, and that it had to do with there was this thing of it being to the child of light. That's what they called Lucifer, and how our society looked after this. That it had to do with portals, and that Salvador Dali, the artist, saw it and said it had 23 dimensions. So in other words, it could move. And the only thing I ever saw any sign of that was actually when I was with a group of people from America and London, and we were up there. By then, the Cradle had been more private. They were looking after it. They didn't let people just go and see it because someone had tried to take it away. They sent a machine over to try and take it, and that was not going to be happening. Anyway, the thing was, as we left, we saw it in the sky. It was made up of sunlight and cloud. It was actually a cradle. It was so extraordinary. It was just near the Venus as it came up in the sky. It was very strange. It was with people pointing, so there's the cradle. So it could be that it has a way of traversing or communicating or whatever. I don't know. It would be important to say that there is another meteorite further north in a place called Le Puy in France. It's not many kilometers. It's probably 2 hours journey, 3 hours journey by car, I guess. But it's a meteorite that probably is not as old as this one, but it landed in Le Puy and it became also a healing stone. And it has it has like chondrules, it has iron and stone, but it doesn't have that extra element that the one in Spain has. So it hasn't got that unidentified other magnetic element. They said about the one in Spain that when it came through the meteor belt, it would have been the size of a double-decker bus, a huge thing. And what landed was, this stone, which was a man, a medium-sized man could lie on it, on his back on this thing. And also what it had was these holes that you can still see where nutrients came from the stone. And they said that's what fed Lucifer.
Patrice, before we get a little too far off, maybe for the audience so they can get a good perspective, the secret, of course, the secret you talk about in your first two books is the portal. And in the Stone Cradle, you bring up this extra one, which is the meteorite where Lucifer is, the child Lucifer. So for the audience, maybe you could, so we can get a perspective of these two. Again, you keep bringing, I always think in every book, well, this is it. It can't get any better. And there's the bang, here comes another one and another secret. It doesn't end. I'm like a fourth book, and I can't even conceive what you might bring in your adventures. But what exactly for the audience is the portal? Because as you write in City of Secrets, there is a society where, as you mentioned, Dali, Jean-Paul Sartre, and all these are, what is the portal that this society was, and the Kabbalists and the Masons, and it seems the Nazis were interested in, and the Phoenicians and the Romans were interested in the secret in Girona, the portal. So for the audience, what is this portal?
It's like a alleyway into the etheric world. It's a passing in from one space to another. It's a transforming journey, which also is tied up with transformation and knowing. It's got a lot of information. It's got a lot of they're not secrets, but they're valuable assets, let's say, to the life that we have on 4 dimensions. That's it would be a different story altogether if we had that here. There are many portals, by the way. It's not just one. But there's the one, which is the important one that people always seek, because it gives power. People who have been through a portal experience come back with a certain power, freedom. It's a bit like going into another. It's like a death experience, and where you come back. You can say, this I've seen, I don't fear this now, this is something different. When I had the portal experience, what amazed me was the fact that it's like you have to do the prep for doing that first. But I won't go into all that, but you've got to have a guide, because otherwise you get into a mess there. And the thing with going into that energy is that it's like a fairground ride. And you see, actually, it's like your guide. You've got one guide is prepared you here, but then as you go into the portal, you see the one who's going to guide you in there, and it's usually someone who's passed on that you've known. So I did see the one who was there. I could hear his voice. He was someone who was a professor at Oxford of his French history, and I was amazed. I was like, well, not really. I thought, because it would be a many, but then I thought, well, my main question about the portal was, how do I get back, and when can I stop if I don't like it? And these were things you had to work on before you ever went near the portal aperture. That was all worked on in you, but you still, or I did, felt a certain doubt, and then it was like taking a jump. It's like saying, "Oh, look, I can do it. I just see what it's like." As long as I remember what I've been shown and told, and I had an amazing guide who was helpful. And the thing with it is that it goes into other dimensions. It's like a fairground ride. So you're sped along, and then you stop. You're stopped. You don't stop. You're stopped. It's your conscious doing it. Your conscious self. It's not your bodily self. Your bodily self is waiting for you to return, and you better have returned. Otherwise, there'd be no life continuing as that person. But the thing with it was that the surprise was that the past, the past I'd had in this life was like a little whim of activity. I sped through it. It was hardly noticeable. And then I was into other much bigger stuff, very colourful. And the further you went, the more colourful and rich it became. And you changed. You could almost feel that your textures were different. And then you started to see quite huge vistas and colours that, I would say that I hadn't seen before. I didn't like it, that bit. So it's time to come back, time to kind of keep your feet on the ground and get back. It was very much that thought. I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd do it again. I don't know. I think when I came back, I felt, I did feel really, I felt lucky and very privileged to have done that. It took quite a few weeks to get to that stage. And I had changed. Now, when I see initiates who have done it all the time in the care of the society, which is like, it's a bit like the Freemasons, but it isn't. But some of them who are part of that society are Freemasons. But I look at my friend, when I mentioned the poet, he's done the portal journeys a few times, and he's different to anyone else. It's like he's getting on now, but he's got a youthfulness. He's got no fear, and he's very agile, and he's wise, and he's coming from a very loving place. He's an initiate. There's something definitely people are drawn to him. Their eyes open up when they see him. He's the one who stands out, and he's got a lot to give. And I've met others who have been in that society, around that portal. And you see, the thing, I know what you're going to ask me, but I'm trying to, is where does the Luciferic story and the Cradle link up with it?
Yes, that's definitely, but maybe before we get to that, it probably for the audience should know too. And again, I feel that there are many Grail legends and so forth, and I've read them all, and I'm suspicious, but your story always struck me as the closest to the truth. There's something in me that says yes, because I have had portal experiences in the Iberian Peninsula and so forth. But this ties into the Rennes-le-Château and the Priest Saunière, because this was another portal.
Oh, and this was, no, he was looking.
He was looking
for the portal, and he found the portal, and he found many things that they had. I mean, the connection, the link of the portal, it's kind of difficult. No, it isn't difficult, really. There's a landscape between Rennes-le-Château and Girona in Catalonia. There's a landscape which is marked out. It's a double one. So there's what is in the Girona area and the Spanish area is duplicated in the French area. It's landscape. And that is where the portal is. The portal isn't a tiny little gap between a couple of rocks. It's got a precise place where you start, and it's on Mount Canigou. You go up to the summit, and that's not a small matter. And people, just to say that a lot of people have gone to the summit, and they've had portal experiences. They've had strange experiences. And there's an Englishman, a very sweet man, who went there, who loved that area. He loved that mountain. And he brought his family there, and he worked there. And he used to drive people up to the top of the Canigou. It's the sacred mountain of the Catalans. He'd go up there, and then he was aware that there was a portal. And he read the book, the portal book, and he went up there and decided to go through it. And his widow said he couldn't not do it. It's something he really wanted to do because there's so much he wanted to know. And he went through that experience. He went through the portal, and he didn't come back in time. So his physical body died.
Wow.
But his...
And here's a question for you, Patrice. You talk about in your books, again, the society protecting this portal, and it gave visions, or perhaps gave vision to the French director Jean Cocteau. Salvador Dali obviously seems to be influenced by his experience. All these great characters, the Kabbalists were there. It was protected. Why did you decide to make it public for the world and offer people the chance to go visit the portal?
Well, no. Well, I couldn't. No, let's pause there. Let's start at the end there. Go visit the portal. No, can do. That is not how it does. You have to gone through the whole process to even find the aperture, and there has to be a preparation. You can have a kind of portal experience, like you go into another reality, and you think, "What was that?" and you kind of leave there a bit changed, maybe a bit shaken, a bit joyous, whichever. But the point of doing it is it gives power. And there are things within the portal which bring power. And it's always said by the society, they're not messing about with it. It's not like it's been going for a long time, centuries. And the thing with it is that it's in the wrong hands, it would be a bad mistake. It would be bad. It would be powerful, but not good, and not good for the planet. This is one of the reasons why they hold on to it. And the second is that they are obviously fascinated by it, and fascinated by the whole experience of it, and the fact that it isn't. And I've learned this because at first, when I first heard about it, I thought, well, it's a bit like those stories, children, like go through the wardrobe and you're in another existence. It felt a bit like that. And I thought people who've written those probably knew one or two things about portals, but I did hear when I was in Gramercy Park, just to take it away from Girona. I was in Gramercy Park before the hotel. There was a I don't know if you know Gramercy Park, but there's a hotel there, the Gramercy Park Hotel, right? And it was old. I think it was 1920s or something. And I used to stay there quite a lot, and it was had a lot of atmosphere. And it always had a strange feeling to it too, like something had happened. And then someone there, a musician, a composer, had actually gone to Gramercy Park and gone through a portal. And he'd had some stroke, and it was, not a good thing, because I mean, you shouldn't do it really. I mean, this is the whole fact about when you said about people going there and talking about it and let's go up and go through the portal. You sort of can't do it like that, because I think the thing is, if you take your body beyond what it can do anyway, it's not a very good idea, is it? Even in like running too far or something. I mean, it just isn't where it is in being well and grounded here. But I was excited by the whole. At first, I knew there was something always about the place, that there was some extra dimension, something powerful. There was people like Dali around, and there was a filmmaker called Buñuel. He had something to do with it too at one point. There were people around. I mean, I was on the exterior of this. I was outside of it, but I was useful to them for one reason, because I am mediumistic and clairvoyant. Up to a point, I don't do it 24 hours a day or something, but it's there. I can do it. If I can do it if someone's ill or something like that. That is, a lot of people have this and they develop it. I guess I had it from like birth or whatever. Anyway, the point is there I was a useful, very young person who could do and see things or touch them by being like psychometry. I could clairsentient touch something and say what was going on with that. So I saw all that, and it was exciting. There was something really exciting about the Habsburg who used to come to Girona. I mean, there was a Habsburg, and also went to Rennes-le-Château. There were all these stories and things that went on in that place, which couldn't happen anywhere else. It seemed like a kind of vortex of really strange things that went on. And I think some places are like that. That is certainly one of them. It's powerful. Some people, they go to that area, they leave running. Other people go there and they keep going back. So the thing also, it's a very bad idea, you did have one of those kind of going into another kind of existence or energy space, to kind of carry on. I think, well, let's give this a try. It's not a good idea, because it's better to step back and know where you are and what you're doing.
Right, but Patrice, you did make it public, at least in your books and in other places.
Well, I'll tell you why. Yeah, yeah.
Because it did bring interest, because as you write, it seems you talk about power, but there are agencies like NASA and maybe the CIA that became interested in the portal, didn't they?
Oh, very much so, absolutely. But no, the reason why I came into it was because of José Torres, a poet and nationalist, Catalan nationalist, the one I've mentioned a couple of times. He was, I was with him for quite a long time. He's still a great friend of mine. I really admire him. I think he's really fantastic. At the time, he was at the time, I'd written a lot of books and, on different subjects, different things. I'd done quite a few by then. It was in 2003 or something like that. And I was doing a play as well about Modigliani and Gianni Butan. I was doing that. I was not even remotely thinking about these issues. And he came along, and he just had a heart attack. And he gave me these letters. And I'd always tried to find out what this secret and everything was about the place. And I was never told. Well, I never got to hear things, where I wasn't told them. Came with the letters, and he said, here they are, because I don't know if I'm going to make it the next time with the heart attack thing, you know. Gave me the letters, and this was the whole thing. And he said, if I you know, when I died, there's going to be a complete rupture about what happens in the society, because a lot of the people will want the material to go to the Vatican because they won't want any of it to come out.
Oh, no.
And there were others, and then there were others who wanted it to be part of life and society and growth. And, you know, let's talk about it. Let's have an opening up of the fact there are more dimensions. There is more to space. There is more to, you know, it was like we're living in a little kind of cage here. Hey, open the door, you know, break the padlock. Let's get out and see all this. And that's exactly where the break was between these conservative people and these other people. This is where it all kicked off for me, was in 2003. So I said to him, well, I need to, mentioned it to whatever publisher I was with. I think Macmillan. They just done a book of mine called Happy Hour. And I lived in the area, I lived in the mountains in a place called Surrey. Anyway, I said, you know, this look is really exciting. They said, well, get it, write it, I mean, do it, you know. So I spent a long time, and I climbed up many old stairways and climbed many stone hills to get the research. It was very tough to get. He wasn't giving anything away. He got better, and he kind of retreated away a bit. You know, he put the stuff on the table, I mean some of it, and then he was gone. And it took probably to get all that research. It took about 3 years. And then, of course, I got into far more of the experiences, and then I found out how many more people were involved in it. Although I did see, I saw Jean Cocteau before he died in Paris. I went with Jose to Paris in, I think it must have been 1960, I think it was. And I went there, and I realized then that there was a lot more to all of this society, that what they were holding, the material that they were. The thing with the portal is that you go a long way in a very short time. I think that's another way I would describe it. Without question, Howard Hughes had been there, and he'd been in Girona in 1933. Now, he also went there in the early 1950s because he was in love with Ava Gardner. And she was filming out there with James Mason, who I did know quite well, and I did hear quite a lot about Howard Hughes and the stuff that he was into in that very city, Girona. They were filming on the coast, and they were staying in Girona. This was in 1953, and Howard Hughes came out because he wanted her back, or he wanted her, or whatever, however you put it. But prior to that, in 1933, it was said he went with Otto Rahn to look for the portal. And then Otto Rahn, the man I mentioned earlier, the German, he was wrote about the cup, the Holy Grail. And then after the war, Howard Hughes sent out quite a lot of German scientists to the portal area, to the mountain, to Canigou and the base, to do some work and research into the portal. Whether he'd gone through it prior, I have no idea. I don't know. All I know is that he drank milkshakes. He didn't drink alcohol. And in Girona, he went into a bar, and in 33, and he had a milkshake. And the bar was called something like Bar España or something, And because they realized he was a man who had a lot of money, I don't think they probably knew who he was, but they changed the name of the bar to Bar Americano in honor of his milkshake.
Patrice, wasn't he doing the same sort of portal experiments in the United States as you write? So there was a lot of powers throughout history interested in this portal, including Howard Hughes. Yes,
he was. And then you see what happened. So when my book came out, the City of Secrets mentioned the portal, I got a call from one person and then another, then a publisher called, and then they said, it's important you speak to this person, and it's not a fan call. This is important, And it was a man who was very nice. He was from NASA, and he asked me. He said. The point of the call was, in your research into portals, have you come across any replicated portals, man-made portals? And I hadn't. I'd only come across one, So I said, no, I haven't. And they said, do you know what it is? And I said, no, I didn't. And then they said, well, it was an aviator. And I didn't link it with Howard Hughes at all at the time. And he said an aviator in the 50s and 60s, or 40s and 50s, whatever it was, who produced these man-made portals, which went, linked up with space. And so things suddenly appeared and then got lost and then reappeared 4 years later, things like that going on. So the thing was that the man said, the problem is we're destroying them as we find them, because he never put in an insulating thing. I've forgotten what you call it. It's something that it's a, if you're ill, you have to go into a quarantine. That was it. It was a thing to guard against things coming from outside coming in. So things had got in. That was it.
Dear.
And he said, had I ever heard about the black box? And I hadn't. And that was something to do with a box, some container, something, where some being like 50,000 or a million light years away, or whatever, had sent some kind of, this is what I look like kind of thing. It was something with it, but it wasn't a very good idea to have this stuff coming just, there was no protection for the planet or with these portals open. It wasn't a good idea. So he said, if you do find any more, which I thought was most unlikely, and indeed I didn't find any, I didn't look, and can you let us know? And so that was that call. And that's the first opening I had to, that this was quite a serious business of looking into space and existence. I mean, the very room that you're in, and I'm in now, could have, for all I know, if we were attuned to it properly, have something that, like a crossroads or a tunnel or something else. But we live in these dimensions. We don't know. I mean, I'm living in what my expectation of space is, and what my expectation myself is. I don't expect to go, hundreds of years back to another life or, another existence. I wouldn't think it was. That's not what I'm here for right now. I'm here to deal with this one. But people,
Patrice,
what do you think about? They go to sleep. They do. They travel. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm listening to this with great fascination, and suddenly an overwhelming idea is occurring to me that I'd like your opinion on. Could it be that these portals are the actual channels of beings from other dimensions that are basically the ones that The divine right of kings. You said the Habsburgs visit there. People of power probably visit there. And perhaps this is the way the beings in higher dimensions garden the earth. They influence us, and they contact our leaders.
Yes,
and they
I would agree.
flow their information. Yeah. And so, boy, this ties everything. Like the Holy Grail, that Arthur's looking for, because he's looking for that connection. The Cradle, Lucifer being a Promethean a figure that brings fire and intelligence, light to the world. Who knows? They may have actually brought the original form of species on this planet into intelligence from these portals.
Well, that's exactly what was also said, that, the appearance of Lucifer, he didn't kind of come falling out of the sky. I mean, he came along in a slightly different way, which they always said came from the portal on top of Mount Canigou. So, and he kind of came down was carried down as a baby. It seemed like there was a lot of storms and things that happened when his appearance happened, but it was not. He didn't come flying down from the sky. That he was definitely an exiting portal person or being. Yes, and so this, of course, is what they guard certain things apparently, and they collect the energy from around the area and the history, and they collect it. So it's almost like going into a museum which is alive, and you see some Cathar stuff. The portal's there. You see a lot of horror stuff and torture and all kinds of things. You don't know what you're going to get if you go into one. There's no kind of menu. And my guide said, when I was very lucky, she was wonderful. I mean, I didn't always think so, because she was incredibly determined to change me completely, which wasn't probably a bad idea, but I didn't like it at the time. But the thing was, she said, I said, I was on the phone to my kids, actually. I was up the mountain. I thought, if I don't come back, they're going to wonder what the hell went on here. So I did call them. I tried to call one from the mobile because it was too high up on top of this summit. I couldn't get through to this, one of my kids. She came up to me and she said, make the next call to God. And I thought, oh, God, this is not sounding good. And then I said, what? Well, because what happens if, I need to control, what's going on? And she said, better to have faith. And this was a bit frail for me. This was, I wanted something a bit more solid about it. But the thing, the thing also, I just, apropos what you said about them being, that the thing, beings can exit from them or, enter here. Yes, I've heard that many times. And also that one really quite powerful person who's involved in science and a lot of other things, is definitely a being that came from a portal, and he knows far more than Mr. and Mrs. Average, and doesn't need to do exams, knows it all. So everything's immediately there, and everything, his pace is quicker than most. Won't go into any more than that. But these things, it's like one way of looking at it, I guess, is that those beings, they apparently have expressions and ways of looking which are similar. There's something about them, you can see that they are lookalikes. That's all I've seen photos of that, and I can see it, but I can't prove it, and I wouldn't start to even try. But I do feel there is some little grain in what you said about people walking through or appearing through. Yes, I do feel that. And there was a historian in the 1800s, who used to go to Spain to sell Bibles. He was a Bible seller of the New Testament. And he came across a figure that had appeared from a portal. And it sounded very much like the child of light, like Lucifer. And he described it. And people were literally going to kind of harangue him, and to kind of finish him off because he'd even come out with this stuff. Because it was absolutely against the church. And the church apparently did have knowledge of these activities that didn't fit in. I suppose they don't fit in with doctrine. That's really the thing, isn't it?
We have reached the end of the interview. Thanks, Vance, for keeping us company in our little Holy Grail quest.
Oh, it's been
Thank
fascinating.
You,
oh, thank you, Patrice.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yes. And Patrice, thank you very much for once again coming on Aeon Byte Gnostic Radio and discussing your really wonderful work and your amazing adventures through time and space and into eternity. We really appreciate your time and your company.
Thank you, Miguel. And I hope one day you would do this, yeah?
Oh, I really want to go to Girona. I've had that in my mind for years, and I know this would be an amazing place. Yeah, I should go.
Yeah.
And I certainly would love to meet you there. But thank you very much for everything, and we look forward to having you back in the near future if there are more revelations from either you or Lucifer.
Yes. Well, yeah, indeed, that's it. We'll see. Okay, we'll definitely see what happens there. I don't know. As far as I know, I've done it, but we'll see.
Yes, there is still more. The universe might not be done with you yet.
No. Well, it's really nice talking to you, Miguel.
Oh, always great talking to you and hearing more about you. Thank you. And there you have it, my beloved True Seekers. Our first part with Patrice Chaplin. In our second part, Patrice will deal with Mary Magdalene legends and what astral race Lucifer really belongs to, as well as other people who have personally met this alien being. She'll share how the church has been covering up the reality of Lucifer and portals for centuries, and how even Dan Brown tried to muscle in on the whole portal enterprise. She'll go more into the folklore and myths of Catalonia and whether the stone cradle will be made into a movie, and much more. As mentioned, I'll also be adding her past interview on her book, The Portal. The interview really complements this one and focuses more on the Grail legends, Saunière, those interdimensional portals, and European occult intrigue. Let's go hunting of some holy grails. Yeehaw! Please join by either becoming a member or patron at Patreon. Simply go to the God Above God Dead can for ways to keep this Red Pill cafeteria open. I can't do it without you, and we've only just begun, as Karen Carpenter sang. Not in the odd tune about aliens. Of course, supporting with a few shekels here and there really helps, either by PayPal or the U.S. mail. Funny, as I hear that saying shekels is now considered anti-Semite. Heck and heckate, I've been saying shekels for more than a decade, as I've been saying red pilling, snowflakes, variations of awake, and other terms long before these culture appropriations got appropriated by other groups. I just like the term shekel because it reminds me of the days of Jesus, Simon Magus, Alexandria, and all that. Strange days indeed, most peculiar, Mama. But I can sure use your support. And as I always say, if you've got holes in your pocket because of Archon monkey shines, just let me know, and I'll be glad to send you any full showed on the house. So go forth and find your own Grail, and own Lucifer, and own portal to higher worlds. They're all around, just like the means of liberation are all around. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being yourself. Like heaven above you, the spy that loved you, I'm keeping all of your secrets safe with me tonight. Hello and goodbye as always.